Today we'll be taking a look at some potential options for raiding Black Fathom Deeps at level 25. This is not a comprehensive list by any means, but just a few highlights we think are worth taking a look at. First, we'll start off with the tank section. While we don't know exactly how survivable Warlock tanks will be at level 25, options point to them being really good. Gearing wise, you'd probably look to gear it similar to a Druid Feral tank, stacking stamina, dodge, and plus defense where available to hopefully even out the damage spikes you take and not tax your healers as much. As far as specializations go, we have two options available. The first being a build that maximizes our survivability. We definitely recommend 5 out of 5 improved corruption to help wrangle adds, 2 out of 2 improved hellstones for the extra 20% heal you get from your hellstone, and 5 out of 5 demonic embrace for the extra 15% stamina. After that, there are 4 points left over that you can choose to do with as you will. Some notable choices would be staying in Affliction and going improved life tap, or just maxing out life drain to gain more mana, or life drain to keep you casting longer, or going into Demonology for possibly picking up improved M for the 30% extra blood pact, or improved Voidwalker to help the Voidwalker survive as it wrangles adds on ad heavy boss fights. There isn't much we could take for 4 points though in Destruction, as we will be casting Shadow Dots but not Shadow Bolt, but 5 out of 5 Cataclysm would be a runner-up consideration over the other options mentioned. For runes, we choose Master Channeler to turn our Drain Life into a dot, Metamorphosis for the tank form bonuses like instant cast Searing Pain, extra armor, and 100% more mana from life tap, and lastly Incinerate for our leg room for a weavable 25% fire damage boost, which will help boost your threat and damage a lot. Your tanking rotation is pretty standard. You want to open with 1 to 3 Searing Pains to establish some initial threat, then cast Incinerate to boost your fire damage, Immolate to get some dots up there, and then also cast your Shadow Dots. From there you want to fill with Searing Pain until it's time to recast your dots, or Incinerate to maintain the 25% damage buff. The other option is to say forget survivability and go full on threat destruction with or without 5 out of 5 improved corruption. If you take 5 out of 5 improved corruption, you want to take 5 out of 5 Cataclysm and 5 out of 5 Bane for the reduced cast time on Immolate. From there your last point is dealer's choice, with options being between Shadow Burn, Devastation for more spell crit, or hopping over to Affliction for the 1 out of 2 improved life tap. If you don't take the 5 out of 5 improved corruption, you'll be able to take Shadow Burn, 4 out of 5 Devastation, and 1 out of 2 destructive reach to increase your destruction spells to 33 yards. Rotations are different depending on which you choose. With instant cast corruption, you again would open 1 to 3 Searing Pains to establish initial threat, cast Incinerate to get your fire damage, Immolate, Shadow Dots, and then fill with Searing Pain until it's time to recast your dots or Incinerate. However, if you do it without instant cast corruption, you would again open 1 to 3 Searing Pains, cast Incinerate, Immolate, Curse of Agony and Drain Life, and then fill with Searing Pains until it's time to recast dots or again Incinerate. Between the two options, you'll still have Curse of Agony to try and grab adds that spawn, plus your pet, so instant cast corruption isn't the most important thing that you can get. Whereas with the full destruction tree, you have a very simple rotation that could even drop Curse of Agony and just cast Drain Life instead as your only Shadow Dot, mainly for the healing that it will give you. Because most of the tank changes revealed focus on fire, we wouldn't recommend trying a Shadow build, but because everything is so unknown and undiscovered, I'm not saying to rule out a Shadow damage tank build entirely. There will be 3 main builds we think for DPS Warlocks at level 25 for Black Fathom Deeps: Shadow Affliction, Fire Destruction, and Hybrid Destruction. Ironically, all 3 can be played on one simple build with some minor talent changes, with the deciding factor being more on what rune choices you make than talent choices. Starting out, we think for Affliction and Shadow Destruction builds, it will be hard to pass up 5 out of 5 improved Corruption, 5 out of 5 improved Shadow Bolt for the extra 20% damage when we crit with Shadow Bolt, and 5 out of 5 Bane to reduce the cast time of both Shadow Bolt and Immolate. These talents really power up our main damage dealing spells we have at level 25, with the only change for Fire Destruction being taking 5 out of 5 Cataclysm to reduce your fire spell's mana costs instead of 5 out of 5 improved Shadow Bolt. Following that build, for rune choices we choose for Affliction, Master Channeler for your chest rune to change Drain Life into a dot, Haunt for your glove room for another life drain dot plus the 20% damage boost it provides to your other Shadow Dots, and Everlasting Affliction for your leg rune to keep us from having to worry about casting Corruption after the initial application. The rotation for this build is very simple. Starting off, cast Immolate, then cast Haunt, then cast Corruption, Curse of Agony, and Drain Life, and then from there fill with Shadow Bolts and Life Tap as needed until it's time to refresh your dot durations. though you won't have to worry about corruption since your leg rune will refresh it every time you hit with Haunt or Shadow Bolt. Fire Destruction is a talent build I plan on trying out first at level 25 if I'm not tanking for that lockout. The only changes to the build from the other two is swapping out 5 out of 5 Cataclysm instead of taking 5 out of 5 improved Shadow Bolt. For runes, you have a plethora of choices from Demonic Tactics for a nice crit bonus, Lake of Fire if you don't mind weaving rank 1 Rain of Fire for a tick for your 40% damage buff, or the always in play Master Channeler for the lifesteal to fuel life tapping. Gloves, you will absolutely take Chaos Bolt and not even consider anything else, same with Incinerate on your leg rune. From there, the rotation is really simple and honestly will be very similar to the playstyle you may be familiar with if you have ever raided in Vanilla era as a Warlock. You cast Incinerate to activate your fire damage buff, followed by Chaos Bolt, then Immolate, then you fill with Incinerate until it's time to recast Chaos Bolt or Immolate, and you life tap as needed. Lastly, for Hybrid Destruction, it's the same build as Affliction, but instead choosing either Demonic Tactics for a 10% crit buff, or Master Channeler for a life tap source for your chest rune. For your glove rune, you'll want to choose Chaos Bolt, as it'll be a nice nuke to weave into your rotation even if it's a fire-based damage spell. For legs, there's an argument to be made for Everlasting Affliction since you'll be casting lots of Shadow Bolts, but we think the stronger option is to take Incinerate to buff your Chaos Bolt and Immolate damage. As far as rotation, you'll want to open Incinerate, followed by Chaos Bolt, followed by Immolate, then cast your Shadow Dots and fill with Shadow Bolt until Chaos Bolt is off cooldown. You need to refresh the fire damage buff with Incinerate, or your dots need refreshing. Overall, we think this will be the weakest of the three options, both at 25 and at 60, but it is an interesting choice to consider. And with that, we've taken a look at a few different specializations we think will perform well in Black Fathom Deeps from both the tank and DPS perspective. As always, if you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully see you for the next one. Have a good night.